I think what we need more in this world is confident people. The world would be a better place if people knew their worth and they knew truly how much they were worth and they were able to discover that about themselves. They were able to feel seen and heard for the mess and the shit that they go through, but also come out on the other side of that so much stronger with a stronger sense of self and being able to make the world a better place with their uniqueness. Knowing that this is the most cliche thing ever, but I do believe it. I think a person being themselves is the greatest superpower that they can have.
How do you define yourself as an artist?
It's a good question because when I was younger, I really wanted to be Michael Jackson. I wanted to be the next Michael Jackson, especially when I was that young. As I got older, I started to see things differently though. Especially when I was younger and before I became an adult, during my teenage years especially, I had this problem where I was constantly trying to be like other artists so much where I felt like I was copying because I didn't really know any better and I didn't have a really strong sense of self and a strong sense of identity or really a firm foundation and solid understanding of who I was, not just as an artist but as a person. And I went on a 5-year hiatus from when I was about 17 to just last year. Now at the age of 22, in those 5 years that I took time off from music was really pivotal for me because I was able to understand who I am as a person and as an artist and what I really wanted to do with my sound and the direction I wanted to take my career. So I would say as of now, I'm not trying to be Michael Jackson or really any other artist. There's a lot of influences. I have a truck ton of influences that I kind of like to just blend together and call it my own. And I think the most important thing is no matter who I'm influenced by or who I look up to or whose music I find myself inspired by, that I stay true to myself and I always stay Link Strummer and not another artist.
So you said you took this 5-year hiatus. What were you doing during that time, and how did it lead you to who you see yourself as now?
That was in about 2020 that I decided to take a break from music, and I took a hiatus not thinking I would ever come back to music. It was kind of an indefinite thing. It was kind of like a, who knows, we'll see, but I'm not gonna try to make this my career like I was before. You know, there was a bunch of I really had no plan. Instead, in those 5 years, what I was focused on doing was climbing the corporate ladder because at that point I was just getting ready to graduate high school. I was finishing up my final year. Me and my classmates, we were all collectively applying to universities and college, and I applied to university and then I ended up going. And what I ended up studying was marketing, but like corporate marketing in that business sort of world, and even with a little bit of a biology minor mixed in, because I told myself that music, it's not going to work out, it's not going to happen, this is the end. And I felt pressure from my parents, my peers to get a real job, do the 9-to-5 thing. So that's what I put my head down and started working towards. I became very involved and very active on my campus that I was attending. I really tried to be a good student. I aimed for internships, did all the right things, and throughout those 5 years, the more I did it, the more I felt like the sense of emptiness in me. Like I felt every single day that there was something wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And at the same time, I was doing a lot of self-development, like discovering who I was as a person and what I really wanted and what, not just the things I liked and disliked, but what I'm willing to tolerate, what I'm not willing to tolerate, overcoming a lot of things. I used to struggle with social anxiety when I was younger, and that was one of the things I pivotedly was able to overcome in those 5 years. But apart from that, it was constantly feeling like I had made a mistake, and I felt regret because when I saw other artists my age that were finding success in music, I was happy for them, but I couldn't help but think that I had done myself a disservice or I had disrespected myself in a sense by telling myself I can't do this anymore, and that it was kind of a way to cope with the fear of going back to music, that I told myself, no, this is what you got to do now. You got to go pursue business or get a degree, get a real job, build a life for yourself. So ultimately that didn't last very long. It was a very long 5 years, but I decided to come back because the water of the dam just broke and I couldn't really resist that anymore.
I think that's great. I mean, so many people focus on going to college just for getting a better job, right? But it's people forget about this whole aspect of just self-development when
Right.
you're in college. And it sounds like you got an experience of developing yourself and that led you back to a part of yourself that you couldn't deny.
Right. Yeah, of course. I didn't have like a typical college experience because I didn't go to college in the States. I am from Canada, so we have something called university over there, and a lot of our universities are not like party schools or whatever, and the one I went to wasn't a party school. It was a commuter school right in the middle of downtown. So I didn't have a typical college experience, but I did have the experience of going to a ton of student events, trying to make friends, socialize, figure out what I wanted, get good grades, think about applying for internships, job prospects, thinking about all that really heavy stuff at such a young age. And I would say just what that helped me develop is especially a sense of confidence and a sense of empowerment, because I remember the person I was when I walked into my campus for the very first day in my first year. I was this person that was pretty insecure. I was very shy. I had no confidence. I didn't know how to talk to people. I was scared to talk to people. I was scared of people looking at me in a room. And that went on until my second or third year of university. And I think that was the biggest takeaway I took out of it. Most people think, most people say that their biggest takeaway out of college, university was their education, their courses, their student groups. And for me personally, it was a social aspect and discovering who I am and not being scared of what people think of me, and really learning to like myself and discover what I liked and didn't like, and becoming comfortable in my own skin, and being comfortable in my own skin, especially in a room full of people. And that translates into the real world. And that kind of goes back to what I said with several artists along the way really inspiring me, like Madonna. And I found her messaging and her music very helpful during that time. So that's kind of helped shape me into the person I am today.
Yeah, I hear people say like, it's our strengths. It's not so much developing our weaknesses, but it's like accentuating our strengths that help like really bring us through life. So when you say you found reasons to like yourself, what are some of those things about yourself that you found are likable on a deeper level?
That's a loaded question.
Get used to it.
That's a question that I find people don't get asked often, and people don't even ask themselves often. What do they like about themselves? And I think if more people ask themselves that, they would have better self-worth, better self-esteem, a better relationship with their self. So to answer your question specifically, what I like about myself, I would say, although I'm not a perfect person and I have many things to work on, as we all do, I have my weaknesses, I fall short. Some of the things I've really grown to like about myself is my ambition. I'm a very focused person in the sense of I know what I want and I go after it at any cost. Whereas before, I wasn't as strong in that, even from when I was a kid, I've always been pretty decisive in what I wanted, but sometimes I lacked courage when I was younger to actually take steps and take the right action to make that happen. And as I've grown older now, I've really learned to do it and develop that sort of courage and initiative, and that's one of the things I've really grown to like about myself.
I think you kind of answered a little bit of this next question, which is, who are you really behind the scenes?
Behind the artist, in a way?
Yeah, behind the image that you project as an artist.
Well, to be honest, I'm not entirely different. The whole persona that people see publicly online, that is how I behave behind closed doors. Maybe a little bit calmer, a little bit less exaggerated, but ultimately I'd say I'm pretty similar. Not a crazy comparison. I know some people, they live very different lives. They have a double life where publicly they're this one character almost, and then at home when the cameras are off and they're in private, their real self shows. And I find I don't really relate to the whole double life and that huge stark contrast so much. I would say the only difference is, apart from being a little bit calmer and not as exaggerating my aspects of my personality online, I would say I'm just a regular human. Apart from being an artist, I have hobbies. I like to go to the gym a few times a week. I sometimes like to go swimming. I like to go out for walks, for hikes. I like to eat good food like this as well,
Yeah.
I really do love my wine. I love pouring myself a big, lovely glass of white Moscato.
Mm.
So that's a little bit about me behind the scenes.